Hello, COM4806ers. I hope you've accessed the reading demarcation and that you are reading and writing like crazy at the moment. Today I would like to talk to you about the paradigmatic positions themselves. I'm not going to give you a recipe for your assignment answer. I want you to get to your essays on your own interpretations of your reading, but I want to give you a broad overview of research philosophy to bring your minds into the right frame to think about these things and these paradigmatic positions. Before we properly get into this, I want you to know that this story of research philosophy, this idea of paradigms, ontology, epistemology, axiology, is as I know them. I might be wrong in some instances. Some of the ideas we cover in assignment 1 are contested and debated in academic circles. Even the simpler things like terminology is not agreed on. So what some people might call a philosophy, others call theory, what some people call a religion, others call an ideology, and so on. I will use terms as they come to me, and I'll try to use the terminology as we use it in the TUT 101. And I hope that my intended meaning will remain even if I call something a theory, your readings call a philosophy, and so on. Okay, so let's go. Philosophy. Western philosophy, I know, we'll talk a bit more about Western philosophy in a bit, is said to have 5 main branches. These are the branches of metaphysics, epistemology, logic, axiology, and aesthetics. I'll zoom in to show you. Simply put, metaphysics is the study of existence, being, the world, and reality. Those things that are not physical, not tangible. And a subsection of metaphysics is ontology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge and how knowledge is gained. Logics is the study of reasoning and how we argue and reason about things. Axiology is the study of ethics, the study of action, how we should be acting, the study of values. Aesthetics is the study of beauty, of art, and of the senses of life. But these major branches are not just clean and distinct and separate like that. There are also specific philosophical traditions that deals with specific views on one or more of these branches, so a sort of collective of some of them. These traditions are sometimes called disciplinary philosophies. Those little trees below are examples of some disciplinary philosophies. Now, religious philosophy, to illustrate how I understand these traditions, let's take religious philosophy as an example. Religious philosophy mainly belongs to the metaphysical branch of philosophy, as it has to do with those very basic questions about human existence, about our purpose in life, how we came to exist, and so on. But it also has an epistemology. So if you take Christian philosophy that says that knowledge about God and human existence can be learned from the Bible, that says about how knowledge is gained and what is a legitimate source of knowledge. It also has an axiology that says, for instance, to value God above all and to value your fellow human beings as you value yourself. So can you see that the philosophical tradition covers more than one branch? Maybe not all, maybe something like logics or aesthetics is less important in the religious philosophy. I don't know, I'm not a Christian philosopher, so I'm not sure exactly which ones are included and excluded, but just as an illustration of how this can work. Then you get something like political philosophy, ideological philosophy, language philosophy, educational philosophy, and then for us today in this module, research philosophy. Now, research philosophy in essence, I would say, belongs mainly under the branch of epistemology, as research is about inquiring knowledge. So in the bigger scheme of things, research philosophy deals with the sources, the nature, the development, the acquisition, the dissemination of knowledge. And to some extent, if you are doing research, and if you are a believer in research, you already have an epistemology of your own, one that believes that research is at least one source of knowledge, and that the systematic way we work as researchers is a legitimate way to gain knowledge. But if you look at research philosophy itself, it cannot be viewed without understanding something about metaphysics, or the subsection we usually refer to, ontology. Also logics, how we reason and how we motivate is different in research than in other aspects of life. So it will also, when we talk about research philosophy, have something of logics in it. And then if you are of a specific conviction, you can also say that research is not separate from axiology or from values, moral values and ethics. And then, of course, research is about knowledge. So ideas about knowledge is prominent within the philosophy itself. So despite being a tradition mainly under the philosophical branch of epistemology, within the research tradition there is a specific epistemology in itself. Now, in more practical terms, what makes the study of reality, the study of knowledge, the study of values important for research? That's a good question. Short and sweet, Bagele Chalisa answers us. She says, the researcher's perceptions of reality, what counts as knowledge and values, have an impact on the way research questions are conceived, research approaches, data gathering instruments, analysis and interpretation and dissemination of research findings are approached. Easy, right? So the way we assume reality is, the way we assume knowledge is, and the way we assume what we should value greatly influence how we will practically go about doing research, how we will interpret literature and data, what kind of work we will prioritize, and so on. So it's pretty important, I would say. As a side note, it's also then quite easy to see that because we are dealing here with a philosophy and a way of speaking about research that is conceived in the West or in Europe maybe, and that the way that these different paradigms in research philosophy was developed was in a way that Africa and other non-Western contexts were not a part of. And in fact, not only weren't they a part, but we were actively oppressed. And of course this is important because the whole system only recognizes then certain ways of being, knowing, and certain values. We will get to that again when we speak about decolonial research, but I want you to start thinking about the way we philosophize, the way we categorize, the way we look at the world. If those ways that were developed are without Africa or without non-Western input, they are actively exclusive of some of the ways of being and knowing that does exist in Africa or in other parts of the world. All right, now that being said, let's look at these four aspects in a bit more detail. Ontology. Bagele Chalisa says ontology is the study of what it means to exist. So ontology is about what is real and what is not real. Our beliefs about what is real and what is not greatly informs our approach to research. For instance, is there only one reality and one truth? Is reality separate from human perceptions or not? Is reality the same for everybody, or is it different between people? Can we know everything about reality, or are some aspects hidden? Is reality stable, or does it change over time? Questions like this are all questions about ontology or ontological assumptions. If this is not making a whole lot of sense to you, I will try and explain it by using an example. It is about the concept of a card. In this sense, the metaphysics here will be the theory of cards, their existence in the world and the ways they are in the world. Now, when we get to a specific area of expertise, a card is different. In the world of gambling, for instance, a card may be a poker card. In the world of football, a card, or being carded, is something completely different. In the world of programming, a card may refer to a sound card or a graphics card. So when you are talking from within a specific field, that card that you are referring to can be many different things. And understanding what a card means in a specific world, in a specific area, that is the ontology of cards. What are they? How do they exist? And what are the strings that bind them together to the bigger theoretical and research tradition they exist in? The next one is epistemology. As I said earlier, all of research and all of the studies that are actually happening are within the epistemological branch of philosophy, because we attend school, university, and conduct research in order to gain knowledge. It is about knowledge, what knowledge is, and what we should know about the world. Doing research is one of the ways we believe can help us attain knowledge to get to how we know what we know. But in the philosophical tradition in itself, we think about knowledge in various different ways. And this is the epistemology of research itself. These different ways we think of knowledge in different areas of research. Epistemology is what is real knowledge. In other words, epistemology is the philosophy about what can be known about the world or known about reality. And how do we know what we know? Why do we believe what we believe? Where do we get the information from? Epistemological questions are questions about what is or should be acceptable, legitimate knowledge in a specific context, and can be very, very many different things depending on your ontological assumptions, depending on the field or the specific discipline you are working in. You can determine the epistemological assumptions by answering the questions: what are sources of knowledge and are they reliable? How does one know something is true? Do I need proof before I can know something, or is a belief also knowledge? And what does an acceptable knowledge product look like? In our everyday lives, this very complicated matter of religion can help us maybe understand epistemology as well. If you believe in a specific spiritual scripture, like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah, it essentially means that you believe that the information contained in that holy book represents the truth. So if you read it, you will gain knowledge, true knowledge, the only knowledge. If you do not believe in any holy books, you are essentially believing that what is written in those holy books are not the truth necessarily, or the whole truth, and cannot be a legitimate source of knowledge. A believer will use their holy book to justify what they believe, what they question, how they doubt, and how they know what they know, because it's written in that reliable, trusted source of knowledge. The next one is axiology. Axiology is about our ethics and values. In other words, axiology is philosophical principles regarding the presence and relevance of ethics and values in research. A typical day in a business, you might hear, business is business. That actually says that in business, we don't have to consider right and wrong. We just consider results. That's an axiological statement. We also know the saying, all is fair in love and war, meaning that we are able to expand our minds to be accepting of certain behaviors in a specific context that we are not generally accepting of. That's also axiological. Some researchers assume that knowledge is and should be value-free and neutral and objective. Others are outright about valuing human rights and social justice. For instance, a decolonial paradigmatic position assumes a relational axiology, meaning that human relations and respect for others and reciprocal appropriation are central to life and research and essential to counter the suppressed realities of colonized people. Next is methodology. As I said earlier, methodology is the how-to beliefs of research. Depending on what you believe about reality and about knowledge and about values, you will also have a specific belief about how one should practically go about collecting information. Methodology asks, how should we study the world? Can you see the progress in the story? Before you can get to the methods of research, what this module is about. Before you can get to the methods you use, you first have to know about your other beliefs and assumptions, as all those other beliefs and assumptions converge to inform your methodological considerations. So everything from your research approach to your research design to your specific methods and the techniques you will use for collecting and analyzing data grows from your beliefs about the world, about knowledge, and about ethics. If we take religion for example again, if you believe that truth and reality lies with God, and knowledge comes from the Bible or another holy book, through the interpretation of prophets maybe, priests, pastors, and so on, then you get the methodology of how to live from, for instance, something like the 10 Commandments. If you believe in Allah and the Prophet Muhammad, then the 5 pillars of Islam, those including prayer, daily prayer, fasting during Ramadan, and the holy pilgrimage as 3 of them, is something of a how to live your life. If you are a Buddhist, you won't be using the methods of Christianity or of Islam. Why would you? Because based on your bigger beliefs, your methodology gets decided on. It cannot be separate from those bigger beliefs, and it cannot be contrary to those beliefs. It is a convergence of those beliefs. Let's look at the assumptions that underlie the 4 paradigmatic positions we cover in this module. Paradigms are very specific combinations of ontological, epistemological, axiological, and methodological assumptions. That is, when seen together, can be a kind of a framework. Now, just like research philosophy is a philosophical tradition, within research philosophy, we have specific frameworks or paradigms that are more specific groupings of within this disciplinary philosophy. Okay. Now let's look at the 4 paradigmatic positions in assignment 1. Now firstly we have decoloniality. Research philosophy, as I said at the beginning, is Western philosophy. And the way we see research assumptions and paradigms are set up and distinguished in different categories, in different ways to look at the world. All of that whole system of ideas comes from the West and was written without consideration of non-Western reality. So for us as an African university, and for you guys as African students, to keep conducting research without questioning why we do what it is we do and how we know what it is we know will perpetuate a colonial way of being. And this is where the decolonial paradigmatic position comes in. Nelson Maldonado Torres says that coloniality are those logics, metaphysics, ontologies, and power that remains as a legacy of colonialism. That makes decoloniality those efforts to rehumanize the world, to break hierarchies of difference that dehumanize subjects and communities and that destroy nature, and to the production of counter-discourses, counter-knowledges, and counter-creative acts, and counter-practices that seek to dismantle coloniality and open up multiple other forms of being in the world. If we think like this when we do research, we can see that the ontology here, much like it will be in interpretivism, is one that recognizes multiple realities that are constructed by humans. Reality also includes not only human beings, but also other beings, especially from the non-living and the spirit world. Decolonialism specifically also believes that ways in which we see reality has been distorted by Western powers, as we have for so long been subjected to Western ways of seeing. I hope you can see that the epistemology is one that asks questions about how it is that we know what we know. It is a critical epistemology. Decolonial researchers believe they know what they know because they unlearned and relearned. And in order to gain knowledge, we must look again at those things we thought we knew and reconsider all of it. The epistemology of decoloniality also includes a belief that knowledge is communal and relational, and that we know what we know by relating to other people. I think it's rather obvious also that the axiology of decoloniality is that specific value is placed on those people and those knowledges that have been suppressed and silenced in the past. Decolonial research values respect and relationships specifically. Decolonial methodology, therefore, is very interesting, as it is inclusive of methods not usually recognized in Western mainstream science. Interesting and indigenous methods like storytelling, songs, proverbs, dance, myths, rituals, talk circles, and bigger forums like Imbadu is included in decolonial methodology. Then, the second row of paradigmatic positions, we have positivism. In the context of positivism, positive means like being sure about something, being positive about something, in the way that you are not being speculative or tentative. So it's like when someone asks you, for instance, is the library open at the moment? And you answer, yes, I'm positive about it. It doesn't mean you are emotional about it, like happy about it. It means that you are sure of your story. You are certain of the facts the library is open. And already you can hear something about the ontology, even in just the description of what positivism is. Positivists believe in an absolute truth, free of speculation. A reality that is true for everybody. It's universally true, in other words, and one that is stable, so it's true now and true a bit later, and it's objective, so it's free from our own ideas of it. So when we take this library idea, the library is either open or closed, independent of whether I think it is open or closed. There is an objective reality there. If the library is open, it's not a little open or a lot open, it's either open or it's not. If it's open for one person, it's open for everyone. So it's not only open to one student. If it's open for one student, it is true that it's open for everybody. So it's universally open. When we write about positivism, I tend to make positivism the bad one, even me if I write about it, because it doesn't consider the whole picture. It doesn't give a full human experience. But in real life, many things are considered this way. Most of us value proof, value some kind of objective truth. We all feel about something so strongly that we feel it is stable and external and universally true. Together with the belief that the truth is absolute and objective, we can already understand that the axiology of positivism could be that science is value-free. Because it's objective, right? It's universal, right? So there's no space for feelings and emotions. It's a neutral ontology. So also, axiology, I mean. Also from the university, the externality, we can already see that the truth is out there. It's not a truth that's in us when we are positivists. We must then first experience it and count it and verify it, because before we can say we know it. We can know it from, we cannot know it from in ourselves. We must prove reality and use that proof and method and strict boundaries to cast doubt on other types of knowledge and motivate our own. If we take the library again, you can only say you are positive the library is open if you have experienced it being open. And if somebody asks you how you know, you must provide your proof. If you say it's open because I believe it to be open, you will not be a very reliable source of information. This is where post-positivism is a bit different. Post-positivism says, yes, reality is stable and external and objective, but we are limited in what we can know about it. We must try and be objective and base our claims on verifiable measures, but we cannot get to an absolute positive truth, even if we try. Then positivist research relies on empirical work and on quantitative methods with a focus on the same objective, replicable, generalizable findings. In research, positivism is not a villain. There are many instances where reasonable people expect a positivist approach, where the logics of positivism is in the order of the day. For instance, in a democratic country, we feel seriously about voting and strict processes that are followed. Votes are counted, and we expect the IEC to go to great lengths to ensure that there is no skewing and that the votes must be able to verify it and that outcome is regarded as fair and objective. In business, for instance, we don't think it is strange that you must provide proof of your story and measure to exact standards in order to convince somebody to invest in your business or buy your product. We expect proof that is regarded as universally acceptable when somebody is convicted of a crime, for instance, and we will cry out if the proof did not convince us of the facts. So, also in our research, many contexts call or even require empiricism. And I know that we are communication scientists and that our world is a social one. But there is a place for positivism, and in a specific problem, a specific theory, the traditions of positivism must be considered. Then we get to interpretivism. Almost the direct opposition of positivism is interpretivism. Basically, interpretivists believe that human knowledge is created by humans and resides in our subjective experience. So, not universal, but unique. Not external, but internal. Not objective, but subjective. Not one size fits all, but as many realities as we are people. Can you see from the ontology how the axiology becomes clear? Many people, many subjective realities implies that individual values, human values, are at play when reality is created. So, researchers value the fact that people are humans and that we call the research empathic, as researchers recognize emotion and personal value systems and also have their own value systems when they conduct research. It's also very easy to understand then that researchers will also see themselves as humans, just as they view others as human, and therefore believe that knowledge is interpreted and not absolute, and that we must know by understanding or trying to understand, and that knowledge lies in the perceptions of those who hold those perceptions. Constructionism is similar to interpretivism in that the ontology is internal subjective reality. But where pure interpretivists is about understanding and interpreting, constructionism is a bit closer to a critical approach because a constructionist believes that the reality is socially constructed and that and then they take a bit of a more suspicious approach to uncover hidden and underlying aspects of reality. Interpretivism employs qualitative methods with a focus on meaning and interpretation and understanding. The researcher is seen as involved in the research, interacting with participants and interpreting from their perspectives. Interpretivism is something we as humans understand quite easily. We know that people are unique. We know how we differ from everybody else. So many aspects of interpretivist research might appeal to us. In the social sciences, we use a lot of interpretivist thinking because a lot of our subject matter is about human behavior and about perceptions and interpretations. Also, we make use of interpretivism because it's sometimes a more feasible option for postgraduate studies, as the subjective nature of the study means that the burden of proof is less. It usually means that a study with a smaller scope can be attempted. Maybe it's not a great reason, but it is a practical reason we often have for using interpretivist research. Then lastly, transformativism. The transformational paradigmatic position that is for research that is specifically out to transform and to change the world. It's almost activist in nature. Transformative research aims to empower people, expose myths, critique the way the world works, and they dig deep to find the truth. Transformative research is about topics of injustice and control and prioritizes the idea that research must lead to positive change and emancipation. The ontology of this paradigm is that there are multiple realities and that reality is also layered, with some layers being difficult to observe and to know, where others are easier to observe and to know. Reality from this worldview is also socially constructed, just like constructionism that we group with interpretivism in this module. And this reality is seated in human rights, in justice, in privilege and power in society. That is unique for the transformative paradigm. Critical realists and transformative scholars believe that knowledge should have some practical value. It must lead to change. Linking to this belief that some parts of reality is hidden, transformational scholars believe that knowledge is about uncovering those hidden parts. And they also believe that we can't know from the outside, but we must know from the participant's point of view as well. From this, we can see that the axiology of the transformative approach lies in the belief that freedom from domination, human rights and justice should be valued, and therefore research is definitely a moral, political and ethical activity. Transformative paradigm was first called the emancipatory paradigm. You can read about that in your module reading. And this paradigm is sometimes associated with critical realism. This is a paradigmatic position we don't specifically cover in COM4806, but it's a way that many social scientists view some of their work. Critical realism is almost a combination of positivism and the constructionist part of interpretivism. If you see transformative research in the same as being the same as critical realism, then you will, for instance, use a combination of qualitative and quantitative methods. But transformative research, in the way that it seeks for justice and human rights, can draw on many different methods, both qualitative and quantitative. It's usually important for transformative researchers to specifically include their participants in making decisions about the study and about the design of the whole thing, as it's important for transformative research to include the participants' perceptions and protect their rights and so on. Okay, so I think that's it. Let's quickly recap. We have philosophy, which is the study of wisdom. Then we have those main branches of philosophy: metaphysics, epistemology, axiology, logics, and aesthetics. Then we have the various philosophical traditions, of which one is research philosophy. This is the study of research. In order to study research, we draw on various branches of philosophy. Today we talked about ontology, epistemology, axiology, and together these assumptions grouped together in specific ways to form paradigmatic positions that are used by researchers to express those specific assumptions about reality, knowledge, and values that underlie their work. And eventually, that informs the methodological choices made for a research project. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much, and enjoy working on assignment 1. I will speak to you again next week for frequently asked questions. Okay, bye-bye.